Shalom, Israel. Welcome to another class.
Yes, sir.
Tonight's topic, my name's Ashna Pas, my brother.
Zaman Allah.
Tonight we're going to be covering the Assyrian Captivity. Assyrian Captivity, which was the first captivity after the split of the nation of Israel, due to the transgressions that you can find in 1 Kings chapter 11 of our forefather, King Solomon. So as we've covered in the previous classes, we cover, that. And then we went into a couple of the kings. We got up to Ahab, I believe it was. We will continue that another day. But today we're going to start off with 1 Kings 15. So pretty much skipping over a couple of the kings that we didn't cover last time. 2 Kings, this is 2 Kings 15. And we could start verse 17.
2 Kings 15.
And let me pull this up right quick. So, like I said previously, we'll cover the rest of the kings in another class. But, the story is the same thing. All of the kings of Israel, of the northern kingdom, they committed wickedness. It only got worse. And eventually, it leads up to the individuals that we're going to read about tonight that pretty much, fulfill the promise of the Most High, or the prophecy the Most High told Jeroboam at the beginning. He told Jeroboam, look, if you follow through, your name will be like David, and it will be, known across Israel for days, for centuries, for life. Jeroboam went ahead, got placed in the position of rulership, and immediately slipped up and committed wickedness against the Most High. He went against the commandments. He booted out the priests. He set up, of the low people of a lower state, or just low class, I guess spiritually, people to be priests. And as we know, the only individuals that could be priests are who? Levites, right? And not all Levites, the sons of Aaron. Only the sons of Aaron. This individual went and set up just some random individuals, right? And they didn't even fulfill the oracles of the Most High. What they set up was their own gods, their own kings, their own idols. He also set up a feast on the 8th day, on the 8th month, the 15th day. All of that you could read about, or you could check out the last class in the beginning of Kings, 1 Kings, all the way to 2 Kings. So after him, all the individuals that followed did pretty much the same or worse. It never got better. And not one king did ever fall back to the Most High like you see in the, southern kingdom. In the history of the southern kingdom, you had a couple of righteous individuals, some that were good, some, that were somewhat okay, and then some wicked ones. Right. But, so again, I'm gonna read off the list. Like I said, we ended up with Ahab, one of the most, well, according to scriptures, according to history, Ahab was one of the worst ones, or the worst. But Omri wasn't too far behind. He was Omri's son. Omri was pretty wicked as well. But at the same time, their wickedness, they were real, industrious individuals that were started to be known by these other nations. Like, if you look at some Assyrian records, you will find a lot of the house of Israel being referred as the house of Omri. But so we left off with Ahab. From Ahab comes Ahaziah, Joram, Jehu, Jehoash, Jehoash, Jeroboam II, Zechariah, Shallum, Manahem, Pekah, and Hosea. So we're going to be here. We're at the last 4 kings is what we're going to read about this evening, going into the captivity of the Assyrians. So you go ahead and start 2 Kings 15 and verse 17.
Got you. In the 9th and 13th year of Azariah, king of Judah, began Menahem, the son of Gadai, to reign over Israel, and reigned 10 years in Samaria.
Remember, Samaria became the capital of Israel in the days of Omri. Under the leadership of Omri, Samaria became, which was pretty much the third capital and the last known capital of the northern kingdom. So this individual, if you read back, a lot of these individuals, I mean, I don't recall one that was set after Rehoboam. I might be wrong, but they were all murdering each other and plotting against each other, assassinating each other, taking each other off, the reign or whatnot. So this the same thing that Menahem did. All the other ones prior to him were doing the same thing, or worse. Go ahead.
Verse 18, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin.
Exactly. Like I just, explained briefly, it was pretty bad. He set up idols. He set up, 2 temples, one in Dan, one in Bethel, I believe it was, which was north and south. So the nation of Israel wouldn't go to the southern kingdom, to Jerusalem, and go back into the laws. But there is accounts, I think 2 Kings, 3, I believe it covers. There's a couple of accounts that cover that Zebulun, Naphtali, Issachar, and a couple of the other tribes ended up fleeing from Jeroboam or from the northern kingdom and going in to the southern kingdom and fulfilling the laws of the Most High. But that's the history on Jeroboam. Continue on.
Verse 19, and Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand.
So what's wrong with that right there? You see anything wrong with that?
I do.
What do you see?
First of all, he's pretty much bribing the king of Assyria to, I guess, have mercy on him. But
what would a righteous Israelite do in this case?
Go to war.
Go to war, right? But before going to war, what are you supposed to do?
Pray to the Most High.
Pray, fast, take counsel. All these things that are in the Bible, they're not in the Bible just so we could just read about them and not use them. And that's where we as a nation still come up short. Because instead of, going in and following a lot of times what we teach, we do the opposite. And we just react. We're quick to react instead of going and actually handling the steps that the Most High requires from us. But of course, this individual, I mean, it's about over 200 years. We're like probably at the 170th year of wickedness ever since the days of Jeroboam, which, came from a wicked past from the days of Solomon. But again, that's what this individual is doing. Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land. And this individual, Menahem, gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. So he's forming an alliance. Go to Deuteronomy 7 right quick. 7 and 3, or 7 and 4. Because a lot of times we forget real quick that, you might not look at that being or there being anything wrong with that. But from the beginning, the Most High said this to us. And this was in regards to the, of course, it mentions the Hamitic people, which obviously were the people that we were going to encounter at the time. But this goes for anything and everything. And when we did make alliances with these individuals, we made sure, for example, Solomon, he made an alliance with Hiram. Hiram was one of these individuals, right? He was from the land of Tyre, Hamite, Sidon, and so forth. But one thing that Hiram did have towards Solomon was respect, because Solomon was abiding by the laws, the statutes, and the commandments of the Most High. Mm-hmm. So it's like just having a servant, an alliance. But this individual right here is low-key bowing down and asking, Pul for help. And this is what the Most High says. Go to Deuteronomy 7, and you can start at
verse 3.
Yeah, 2.
Deuteronomy 7 and 2. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Mm-hmm. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them.
You see? But that's what happens when we become weak. When we go against the laws of the Most High, we forget all these things. We forget that the Most High is not dealing with any other nation. So where we at? We start making alliances, which we have in this present time. We trying to, who are you going to vote for? Biden? Or who the hell is it? Biden and Trump? Those are the two individuals right now?
Yeah, that's what it is.
What's the difference? You got people, you got Israel fighting all day. Oh, you're with the Democratic Party. Or you Republican. And all the other nonsense. But those two parties are the main ones. And for some reason, the so-called Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom, so-called Latino and blacks, the ones that they gravitate the most to is the Democratic Party.
Right.
Why is that? Do you know? Is the Liberal Party? Nah, it's more the Democrat. Maybe now, but as far as history has it, it's been like a lot of Israel. When you see Israel, that's where they clown, because a lot of Israel goes and votes automatically for whatever, president or whatever candidate is under the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. When you look at the history of the Democrats, what's the history? Hella racist, right? Nothing different from the Republican Party. But showing you, and then going back even further back, because remember, even with the kings, when Israel asked Samuel, for a king, Samuel reacted. His reaction was, he got upset at Israel. Why? Because the Most High was supposed to be our king, and the Most High says also in the Torah that if we did set up kings, we were supposed to set up righteous kings from the nation of Israel. But what we had now with Paul, right? He's out here doing the complete opposite of what the Most High stated for us to do, commanded us to do. Okay. So he out here forming alliances. So these are, I'm gonna pull up the kings of Assyria in a minute, but this is one of them. And you got this individual here from the northern kingdom, Menahem, fourth to the last king before the captivity, making an alliance with him. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy?
Not back to Kings.
Okay.
Second Kings
15. 2
15.
Kings 15 and
You can start
20.
19 again.
Okay, 19. And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. Mm-hmm. And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land.
Mm-hmm. So you see, and then you wonder why, nowadays, you start seeing how all the wealth of Israel, because it wasn't only our heritage that got lost, our lands got lost. Imagine how many shekels you just read about right now. The other day, Banaya, I think, was going into a lesson as far as how many shekels and how much silver was being brought to Solomon, which at that time, those over about 120 years, Israel was in complete rulership. Imagine as the global power of that time. And look at where we at now. Even to get an ounce, how much is an ounce of gold right now? $2,000. How many of us have $2,000 to get an ounce of gold?
Definitely not.
Shekels is a gang. When you put this and you compare and you weigh it out and you see what it is, it's like, damn. That's how these individuals, you look at how we completely transfer the power into these no people. You look at Esau. Esau has vaults full of, bars of gold, bars of silver, titanium, platinum, all these other, I forget the other ones that are even worth more than gold. But just bringing that out, how sin is beyond just, the Most High punishing you, but it puts your whole nation in a situation, in a predicament that, we haven't been able to come out of for how many years now? We out here at the GR office. We out here, trying to get a little bit of, crumbs. When the crumbs, the Most High describes in the scripture, the crumbs are for who? Were meant for who? For the other nations, right? But guess what? We out here begging for crumbs. So it's deep when you look at, like right here, you start seeing, because remember in Israel, let me see if I could get that right quick. We had banks. You go to 2 Maccabees right quick, because when these nations is coming at us, they've always came at us, and it's always been our wicked-ass Israelite brethren that sell us out, or put out the information as far as, where the money's at, where the bank's at, what's kept, and for what. Let me see, it's 2 Maccabees. Remember the apparition?
No. The apparition?
Yeah. The scourge, Simon, apparition. It's 2 Kings 3. 2 Kings 3, and you could start at verse verse 10 is where I want to go to, but you can start at 1 right quick.
Okay. 2 Kings 3 and 1. Now Jehoram the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah.
2 Maccabees 3?
Oh my bad, yeah, you did say Kings. But yeah, Maccabees.
Huh? Yeah, I did say 2 Maccabees.
Yeah, I was rereading Kings.
I could have sworn. It's 2 Maccabees 3 in verse 1.
2 Maccabees 3 and 1. Now when the holy
I should have
city...
done you like other Jakes. Let you read the whole chapter. Go ahead, 2 Kings 3 and 1.
Now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well because of the goodliness of Onias
Of
the
who?
high... Onias.
The high priest, right? So it's showing you every time, as the leader of the people is, right? So are his subjects, and so is the land, and so is either you going to have peace or you going to have chaos. So this individual, Onias, and you can see when you read the book of Maccabees, it's going back and forth. We're going, we under attack by all these nations, especially the Greeks. And at this time, Onias is in rulership, because remember, they were trying to even take the priesthood. Wicked individuals were trying to take the priesthood to govern, and of course, to take the wealth of Israel, right? So this individual, Onias, he's a good one. He's a righteous individual, and he's set up properly, right? It says, and his, continue on.
Onias the high priest and his hatred of wickedness.
Imagine that, his hatred of wickedness. I don't know about you guys, but you don't feel that? When you're roaming around, you get close to family members or Israelites that's not on point, you get heated, you want to do something. Don't feel bad about that. The Most High says, be mad, but don't sin, right? That's what this brother's showing right here. And his hatred of wickedness. That's how we're supposed to be operating. But continue on.
It came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts.
Sounds familiar, like when the days of Solomon, right? This is years past whatever we're reading about right now, the captivity of Assyria. This is going into the Greeks, the days of the Greeks. But you see what happened, what these individuals, what these Israelites, our forefathers were able to accomplish. It says, it came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place and magnify the temple with their best gifts. So they were giving tribute unto Israel. Go ahead.
Insomuch that Seleucus of Asia of his own revenues bare all the costs belonging to the service of the sacrifices.
Continue on.
But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city.
Imagine that. Benjamin always wilding out, huh? So you have this Simon, a Benjamite, he started acting foolish. He was set up, obviously he must have been good for him to have been set up to be a governor, right, in the temple. Go ahead.
And when he could not overcome Onias, he got him to Apollonius, the son of Thracius, who then was governor of Cilicia and Phoenice.
So, of course, of another nation. Go ahead.
And told him that the treasury in Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money.
Look at this fool. So our people had banks and had wealth. Remember, it's one of the commandments to have that money for what? Yeah, but for what though? Of course, for the cost of, the temple and the sacrifices and all that, but also remember to help the widow and the fatherless, children that are left behind. Anything, any situation that Israel might have, unfortunate circumstances, that money is supposed to be able to cover those circumstances. Right. So this individual out here is telling the enemy, the other nations, it says, the treasury in Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money. Go ahead.
So that the multitude of their riches, which did not pertain to the account of the sacrifices, was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring all into the king's hand.
Go ahead.
Now when Apollonius came to the king and had showed him of the money whereof he was told, the king chose out of Helidorius his treasurer, and sent him with a commandment to bring him the aforesaid money.
All right, just jump to verse 10.
Verse 10. When the high priest told him that there was such money laid up for the relief of widows and fatherless children.
Right, so he's just explaining. I wanted to just bring this out to show you how Israel was rolling, how having that government is not just about teaching these laws, these statutes, and going about your business. When you really focus in this, ruling is going to bring you to that level. So showing you right here in 2 Maccabees, way after this Assyrian captivity, Babylonian captivity that we're going to read about, Persians and Medes, we still had banks. We still had wealth. This was right before Yahweh Shai came back into the picture, right? But just showing you there's always somebody wicked, right? We got wicked Simon, just like this individual right here. He's taking the money from, all the people of Israel to give it to this Assyrian to try to what? Form an alliance and I guess, confirm that he's going to have the rulership over Israel, which is pretty much a cowardly move, man. A punk move right there. So continue on. No, going back to 2 Kings 15 and where we at, 21?
Yep, 21. And the rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah, his son, reigned in his stead.
Continue on.
And in the 15th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 2 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. But Pekah, the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, conspired against him and smote him in Samaria and the palace of the king's house with Argob and Ariah, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites, and he killed him and reigned in his room.
So we have the same situation repeating itself, right? Yep. Now you have Pekah here. So he slew this individual, Menahem. Now he set himself up. Continue on.
And in the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 20 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tilgath-Pilesner, king of Assyria, and took Ijon and Abel Beth Maacah and Janoah and Kadesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria.
So you see that? So they're already moving. Yep. Under Pekah, Tilgath-Pilesner comes in and takes a good portion of our people into captivity, right? This is before Hosea. So showing you how the Most High was already, getting fed up and ready to fulfill what he had told Jeroboam that was going to happen if we did not abide by the laws, which, like I said, the Most High is patient. Over 200 years. Imagine that. But you got that scripture in Sirach, right, that our people think, oh, you know what, the Most High is not going to punish us. It's all good. I've been here so many years, and nothing's happened to me. Look at this. The nation, a lot of people died. New generations, new seeds came about, right? At least what? In 200 years is at least what? Four generations probably?
Yeah.
About?
Yeah.
Because start giving, bearing seeds like around 20 and 30 or whatever. So probably even more. But, 200 years, like I said, almost hitting that 200-year mark, the Most High is already coming in and it's like, you know what? Forget it. Let's start making these moves. So he's taking all these cities that you guys can look them up on your atlas. This is a good portion of the northern kingdom that was taken by Tilgath-Pilesner. You have something?
Yeah, as far as a precept to what you said about the mind state of people in general, but even Israel too, in their wickedness, and how they don't see that the Most High is pretty much watching. It's Psalms 10, and I'm going to read 2, and I'm going to read verse 10.
I'll get it for you.
All right.
Psalms 10 and verse 2. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined.
And actually 11.
10 and 11?
Yeah.
Verse 10. He croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. He hath said in his heart, God has forgotten. He hideth his face. He will never see it.
So just like what you said about the mercy of the Most High for over 2 years, they're thinking,
200 years.
Yeah, 200 years. They're thinking the Most High, he don't remember, he don't see, but it's a matter of just, that time. And that's just one of the heart operations that the scriptures record in the Psalms about how, some wicked people think. So it's all there.
We might as well get the one in Sirach too, right?
Yeah.
Let's get Sirach. Sirach 5.
Sirach 5.
And you can start at verse 3.
Verse 3. And say not, who shall control me for my works? For the Lord will surely revenge thy pride. Say not, I have sinned, and what harm hath happened unto me? For the Lord is long-suffering, he will no wise let thee go.
Go ahead.
Concerning propitiation, be not without fear to add sin unto sin.
But imagine that. Israel added sin unto sin for over 200 years. What were you to expect? What was the outcome supposed to be? Right? Nothing better? I mean, captivity, that's, and even then, the Most High, remember through the prophets, you have Jeremiah, you have Amos, you have, who goes into it? Ezekiel. It's about I think seven prophets that were warning Israel constantly to come out of the ways of, of the lifestyles that they were partaking of. But they were hard-headed. I think, let me see if I got, I think this might be for Babylon, though. But even, this precept is in regards to Babylon, but go to it. Jeremiah 18. It's cold, man. Because, the message is, it was for Assyria, it was for Babylon, it was for the person in the meat captivity, which was a little different. Romans, the Grecians, the Romans, and in this captivity. Because it's the same thing that we're telling our people in this present time, right? But look at what it says. You can start at verse 6.
Jeremiah 18 and verse 6. If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought.
You start at verse 6? 18 and 6?
Oh, my bad, that was verse 8. I'm tripping. O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter, saith the Lord?
The Most High was explaining, look, I got the ability to do whatever I want to do with you. So he's saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter? Go ahead.
Saith the Lord, behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are ye in mine hand, O house of Israel. At what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a kingdom, to pluck up and to pull down and to destroy it.
Go ahead.
If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do unto them.
So Most High is giving them fair warning, right? He's saying if that nation that I, thought of committing evil towards, if they repent, then guess what? I'm also going to do the same thing and forgive them. Go ahead.
And at what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a kingdom, to build and to plant it.
Go ahead.
If it do evil in my sight, that it obey not my voice, then I will repent of the good wherewith I said I would benefit them.
Is that balance, right? But if they commit wickedness, guess what? I'm also going to forget about that good that I promised them, right? So I'm not gonna give them. I'm not gonna bless them with those benefits. Continue on.
Now therefore go to speak to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith the Lord, behold, I frame evil against you.
Imagine that. Like the scriptures ain't enough, right? You had brothers. I guess it's the same thing. It just sounds different when you read about it, and knowing that these brothers were coming straight, from listening, to the voice of the Most High. So these individuals, these prophets are coming through, and they're saying, go and let these Israelites know that I'm framing evil against them. Go ahead.
Behold, I frame evil against you and devise a device against you. Return ye now every one from his evil way and make your ways and your doings good.
So imagine, he's like giving them that last warning. Like, look, are you really, going to be ready to face the consequences? Or, you know what, all you got to do is repent and come back to me. But look at this right here. Look at the response.
And they said, there is no hope, but we will walk after our own devices, and we will every one do the imagination of his evil heart.
How does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? Imagine the Most High is giving you fair warning, and then your stupid ass is going to say, there is no hope. When the Most High himself is telling you through his prophets, like, look, all you got to do is come back. The Most High, the power, the creator, and your response as a nation is, there is no hope, but we will walk after our own devices, and we will, everyone, do the imagination of his evil heart. That's a reprobate state of mind right there. Lord forbid that. But that was the response that Israel would always give. Jeremiah, he almost got put to death, right? And various other prophets, but that's the response that you would get from hard-headed Israel. Read the next verse, and then we'll go back.
Okay. Verse 13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, ask ye now among the heathen, who hath heard such things? The virgin of Israel hath done a very horrible thing.
Exactly. Because you're going to see right now, even, we ain't covering that now, but when we were coming in, remember the other nations fear the Most High. When Israel came in, they're like, hey, look, I'm down to look out for you as long as you spare me. Now I'm willing to do whatever I need to do so you guys could, I could be on the Most High's good side. But Israel, homeborn slave, rather go into captivity and everything else that we have faced ever since these days, than just simply going back and being obedient unto the Most High. But continue on, and you can read 29 again. Well, actually 30, I'm sorry.
In Jeremiah?
2 Kings 15.
And verse 30.
Yeah.
And Hosea, the king of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah.
Son.
Pekah,
You
the
said king or son? Read 30 again.
And Hosea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and smote him and slew him, and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah.
So there you go. Again, the same thing, right? Pekah gets killed by Hosea. And we all know Hosea was what? Who's Hosea?
To the mind.
He's the last king of the northern kingdom. So when you read in Maccabees, which we'll shortly go into, that's who they're referring to. So Hosea is the last king of the northern kingdom. And as you can see, you think he's going to be a righteous king? He murdered his brother, right? So of course not. Go ahead.
In the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, began Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, to reign.
Where you at?
Verse 32. It talks about...
You skipped 31.
Kingdom. My bad. And in the rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel.
Go ahead.
So in the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, began Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did that was right in the sight of the Lord, and he did according to all that his father Uzziah had done. So that's a king of the southern kingdom, actually.
Yeah, but I want to go into it because, remember, when we talk about the Assyrian captivity, a lot of us just think it was only Israel involved. But it was a lot of things that were happening along with the southern kingdom that were also pissing the Most High off, pissing off the Most High. But still, the good thing about Judah, the southern kingdom, that they would get it together and then slip up, kind of like the book of Judges, right? But just to go into this list, whenever you guys get a chance, there's about, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 21 kings main kings of Assyria. And here we read about Tiglath-Pilesner, right? King of Assyria.
Yeah, that was in verse 29.
So this is, you got, which is around 744 through 727. That's when he ruled, right? So this is Tiglath-Pilesner the third, that we read about in 1 Kings 15, 29, right? So this is, again, Tiglath-Pileser the third, that went and took some of the Israelites into captivity. All right, so go ahead and continue on with the southern kingdom.
Verse 36. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In those days the Lord began to send against Judah Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah. And Jotham slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David.
So look at that. Why would the Most High do that, you think? He's sending Rezin, a Syrian, and Pekah, this evil individual that we just read about of Israel, against the southern kingdom. We'll see right now. Continue on.
Verse 16, actually chapter 16, verse 1. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem.
And did what?
And did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord his God.
You see that? The Most High don't play around. He says, all right, you want to play with me? I'm going to send no people to mess with you. He said that from the beginning to us. So you got Ahaz right here acting a fool. So you got, what he said that he had set up, Rezin, and this other individual, this Israelite coming against the southern kingdom. Go ahead.
Like David his father, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. Yea, he and made his son to pass through the fire according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel. And he sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree.
So who are we reading about? Northern kingdom or southern kingdom here?
Southern kingdom.
There's a southern kingdom king, right? Go to Psalms 106 right quick. And that's how you see how similar we are. Although we feel like we different, just because we speak a different language and we got different idols on both ends, it's the same crap though. The same nonsense that we do. We do it on both ends, whether it's in the Caribbean islands, in South Central America, in North America, across the seas in Africa, Every single continent where Israelites are, we are committing the same nonsense because this is what happened. Psalms 106, and you can start at 32.
Psalms 106 and verse 32. They angered him also at the waters of strife, so that it went ill with Moses for their sakes.
Go ahead.
Because they provoked his spirit, so that he spake unadvisedly with his lips.
We were doing that back then, right? We did that to Moses. We got Moses caught up. Look at what happened in the future. Go ahead.
They did not destroy the nations concerning which the Lord commanded them, but were minded among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan.
That's what we just read, right?
Yep.
This Ahaz, what was he doing? It says right there in verse 3, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, yea, and made his sons to pass through the fire according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel. Continue on.
And the land was polluted with blood. Thus were they defiled with their own works, and went a-whoring with their own inventions. Therefore was the wrath of the Lord kindled against his people, insomuch that he abhorred his own inheritance.
Imagine that. Let's go and see where he straight told Israel that right there. Go to Hosea 4 and 17. He told Judah first, because of course it was Israel that was slipping at first. He told them this. 4 and 17.
Hosea 4 and 17.
And
Ephraim,
when you read about Hosea too, Hosea's going into the desolation of the northern kingdom. Because, that's what Hosea was one of the prophets going in. Amos. Then you got the Jakes that you find in the scriptures, the one that ascended. 2 of them, Elisha and Elijah. Them brothers too, they were going and talking against the house of Israel. You don't find a book of Elijah and Elijah. They're actually in the in the book of Kings.
yeah,
But they did a lot. They did a lot. They so many miracles. Fire was raining upon people, 50 at a time, and Israel was still not getting it, even after all that, right? But Hosea, the book of Hosea goes in and is, pleading with Israel to try to get it together. But, hard-headed Israel never did. Go ahead.
Hosea 4 and 17. Ephraim is joined unto idols, let him alone. Their drink is sour. They have committed whoredom continually. Her rulers with shame do love, give ye. The wind hath bound her up in her wings, and they shall be ashamed because of their sacrifices.
But who knows when, though, right? Ashamed, not from there, but at the end by the recompense or the judgment that the Most High was going to bring upon them, or continues to bring upon us. Imagine our people die. What's the first thing that we do? Go get little sodomites, that blue-eyed devil, and Semiramis, however many Semiramises you want out here in L.A., the most popular one is the Guadalupana or whatever, the Virgen de Guadalupe, and you post them up. So even in, already in a dead state, you still, going and abhorring, going unto other idols, praising idols, doing the little nonsense that our tent tribers do. Southern Kingdom, do they do the rosary nonsense? No? I guess, at least not the African American, because I know like in the Caribbean and all that, they heavy with it, Belizeans, Haitians, they even on some other tip. I don't even think they use Caesar. They probably use some other nonsense, but at the same time, it's the same thing that we were doing back then that we still do at this, in this present time. And even, when somebody has passed, you got in Spanish, in the 10 tribe community, you got the 9 días, 9 days of mourning. In the scriptures, it says 7 days you were to mourn, right? And at the same time, before that, you were, trying to make sure that individual was abiding by the laws of the Most High. But this is the same thing that we were doing back then. It says, continually we committed these whoredoms. But go back to, actually also what I want to touch on, because we're going to we'll get at it in a bit. Go ahead. Go back to Kings.
All right. 2 Kings 16 and start from verse 2 again. 20 years old was Ahaz when he began.
3.
2 and 3? 16 and
3,
3.
yeah.
Got you. But he walked in the way of the king of Israel, yea, and made his son to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel. And he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to war, and they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him.
You see that? So he coming in and going to war with the southern kingdom. But he said he could not what?
He cannot overcome them.
Remember, the Most High said, no, it's not time for you, Judah. Israel's going into captivity. But I'm showing you, if you don't get your act together, you're going to be next. But hard-headed Israel, for lack of better expressions, we don't ever get it, It's like, man. But that's what's happening here. And it's so cold, man, because I was reading. I'm kind of upset because I had this class and I had some other articles that I wanted to go into, which I lost. But one of the main ways that Assyria would overpower people would be what we're going to read about in a minute. But they would go in. Let's say they would, like how they took all these cities. They would take our people or the people out of there, whoever they were conquering, take them to a whole another region, set up other people in that region, and completely make them forget their nationality. That's some cold business right there. You know, they would completely take their identity. And when you look at it, I mean, same thing that Esau did as soon as, they got out here. But just showing you these are the things, and I mainly read about Israel, so I don't know who else they did that to, but they were, talking in regards to Israel. That's how they were operating. So when you read Psalms 83, let's go there because maybe somebody hasn't read it, or just so we could refresh our memories. Remember, it's not only Esau that's against us. Esau's the last individual that we're fighting at this, at this time. But we've gone to war, and we've been at, at war and in conflict with every single nation under the sun. Go ahead, read Psalms 83, and you can start at 3.
Psalms 83 and 2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Mm-hmm. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
You see that? That was it. Okay. So that the name of Israel will no longer be in our memories, right? And that's exactly what they did. Because when you go down, you read everybody. Go down and read who are these nations. Yeah. Start at 6.
Verse 6. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab, the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Mm-hmm. Ashur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot.
You see? So all of them nations did that, right? And again, that was David. That was David talking about it prior to this taking place. So, they were operating according to what they had counsel with each other. Go back to Kings.
2 Kings 16 and
5.
Verse 5. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to war, and they besieged Ahaz, but could not overcome him. Mm-hmm. At that time, Rezin, king of Syria, recovered Elath to Syria, and drave the Jews from Elath, and the Syrians came to Elath, and dwelt there unto this day.
So they took that particular city. They took the Jews out of there. Rezin took the Jews out of there and put his people in there, right? Go ahead.
So Ahaz sent messengers to Tilgath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am thy servant and thy son. Come up and save me.
It's disrespectful right there, man. That's why you got some Kemetic people clowning us because of precepts like this. But that's how people were moving, wicked Israelites. Instead of, have you heard any of these kings pray, fast, go unto the prophets of the Most High? None of them. Imagine how sad, similar to where we at now. A situation, hey, open up a GoFundMe. Black Lives Matter. The Brown Beret, the new Brown Beret movement. It's like, okay, because we're not a special people, right? We're not a people that the Most High said, when you need me, call upon me. All you got to do is make sure that you turn back from your evil ways, and I got you. I'm not a man that I should switch up my promises. I'm not going to break my promises. But look at this fool. He went and called him daddy, basically. Go ahead.
Come up and save me out of the hand of the king of Syria, and out of the hand of the king of Israel, which rise up against me.
Even against his own brethren, he's praying to this damn weak nation, right? But that's the state. And again, this is Southern Kingdom. Go ahead.
And Ahaz took the silver and the gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasures of the king's house, and sent it for a present to the king of Assyria.
Look at that. Imagine that. You're robbing the house of the Most High to try to get aid from a no people, but never consider the Most High. That's wicked. Continue on.
Verse 10. And King Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tilgath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and saw an altar that was at Damascus. And King Ahaz sent to Urijah the priest the fashion of the altar and the pattern of it according to all the workmanship thereof.
Did you skip 9? Or you read 9?
And the king of Assyria hearkened. Oh, I did skip 9. My bad. I went too far ahead. And the king of Assyria hearkened unto him, talking to Ahaz, For the king of Assyria went up against Damascus and took it and carried the people of it captive to Kir and slew Rezin.
Remember, this is the same dude that took already a lot of our cities that we read about in 2 Kings 15 and 29, the Israelites. So it's the same individual that he's coming for help. So imagine how powerful this individual feels right now. He has Israel in captivity, he has Israel fighting with him, and he has Judah asking for help.
All right.
Man, that's crazy. But that's why when you read, brother's going to bring it out in a minute, he not just this particular king, but the ones that follow, I don't think it's this king. I know it's not this king that was talking about that was boasting, but all the other ones were boasting like, what you going to do against the Assyrians? Nobody has ever been able to defeat us or come close to defeating us because of this type of power that we are giving him. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 10 again. The king Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tilgath-Pilneser, king of Assyria, and saw an altar that was at Damascus. And King Ahaz sent to Urijah the king the fashion of the altar and the pattern of it, according to all the workmanship thereof.
What do you think he's doing that for?
To make an idol.
Man, if that ain't weak, he already, man, that's crazy. Continue on.
And Urijah the priest built an altar according to all that King Ahaz had sent from Damascus.
That priest is weak too, man. He should have bounced, but go ahead.
So Urijah the priest made it against King Ahaz, came from Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
And when the king was come from Damascus, the king saw the altar, and the king approached the altar and offered thereon.
Go ahead.
And he burnt his burnt offering and his meat offering, and poured his drink offering, and sprinkled the blood of his peace offerings upon the altar. And he brought also the brazen altar, which was before the Lord, from the forefront of the house, from between the altar and the house of the Lord.
Go jump to 15.
Verse 15. And King Ahaz commanded
Look
Urijah,
at this. Go ahead.
the priest, saying, upon the great altar burn the morning burnt offering, and the evening meat offering, and the king's burnt sacrifice, and his meat offerings with the burnt offering of all the people of the land, and their meat offerings, and their drink offerings, and sprinkle upon it all the blood of the burnt offerings, and all the blood of the sacrifice. And the brazen altar shall be for me to inquire by.
Imagine the blasphemy right there. I'm surprised the Most High didn't set everybody to captivity at that time, right? But again, the Most High, that he sets up promises. You know, he's not quick to act. But this is what this wicked king of the southern kingdom named Ahaz was doing. Imagine, he like, I don't know what kind of gods they had, you know. I mean, it's obvious, same crap, obelisk, you know, everything that you see from the other nations. So he got this crap, and he's offering all the offerings, all the sacrifices of Yahweh unto this.
Right, just switched
right?
completely.
When you read the Maccabees, our people died to make sure that this didn't go down. But in Judah, that's where it says wax fat and kick, right? That's where we were at in our own land when we were able to, you know, rule the world. Go ahead.
Thus did Urijah the priest, according to all that King Ahaz commanded.
You could jump to verse 18.
Verse 18. And the covert for the Sabbath that they had built in the house, and the king's entry without, turned he from the house of the Lord for the king of Assyria.
Imagine that. So like whatever he had done wasn't enough. He completely set up the altar of the Most High and offered it unto the king of Assyria. That's crazy, but go ahead.
Verse 19. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaz, which he did, are not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. And Ahaz slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Hezekiah, his son, reigned in his stead.
You know Hezekiah, right?
Yeah,
Hezekiah put things right. But let's go into 17.
17:1?
Yeah.
2 Kings 17 and verse 1. In the 20th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Ahoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents.
So this, if I'm not mistaken, is Shalmaneser the, what's the V, the 4? I'm bad with my Roman numerals.
I don't even know, like Sennacherib, and that's a completely different guy.
What is that?
Oh,
4 or 5?
That's 5.
You sure?
The V is 5.
All right. Yeah. Well, Shalmaneser the 5th. This is 726 to 722 is when this individual ruled. Go ahead.
Verse 4, and the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to Soking of Egypt. Yeah, that's Soking of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison.
All right, so you got Saul right here, and Shalmaneser. That's to show you how powerful they were that we already read of. That he found some foul in Hosea, because he stopped sending the amount of money that he was supposed to be sending, that he had been sending for the past 3 years. So he came through and locked them up. Go ahead.
Then the king of Assyria came up through all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
So what year we at right here? Do you know?
The 9th year of Hoshea.
722. 722. Remember I told Shalmaneser the 5th, he reigned from 726 to 722. This is taking place in the latter part at 722 BC is when the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, goes into captivity under the Assyrian kings. Go ahead.
Verse 7. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and had walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel.
Which is what we read earlier in Deuteronomy 7, right? Go ahead.
And of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city.
Go ahead.
And they set them up images in groves in every high hill and under every green tree, and there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they served idols, whereof the Lord has said unto them, ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like to the neck of their fathers that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes.
Jump down to 17.
Verse 17. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger.
So he's being real descriptive as far as everything that Israel was doing. Because we read about everything, that these kings was getting into. But look at, obviously, if they were doing that, look at how the people were reacting. The same thing. Divinations, enchantments. They were selling each other to do evil, all right? Supporting each other to do evil, just like what we have in this present time, right? So what's the next captivity, though?
It's not supposed to be.
what is it? 2/3, where they going? I hope they. I hope it's not, I'm not one of them. Most High willing. Where's the 2/3 going? You know? Ain't no escaping that one, right?
Eternal prison.
Man, but it's the same thing. The Most High gives us so much mercy at the end of the day. It's like, look, all right, man, I'm done with captivities. I'm gonna just burn you up. That's it. And that's where we at right now, you know? But these things, when you see the prophets, they knew. A couple of Israelites, they came back and continue in righteousness because they knew that they weren't gonna, play with the Most High. Everything, imagine, if you see it happening in front of you and you still want to go ahead and be hard-headed, that's when you read Proverbs, you read Sirach, and you read Psalms. Only a fool could operate like that, right? But go ahead and continue.
Verse 18. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Mm-hmm. And Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. For he had rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord and made them sin a great sin.
Go ahead.
For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them. Mm-hmm. Until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day.
Go ahead.
And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cutha, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof.
Come on. So right here, the brother just has a map of the Assyrian growth. And as you can see, if you go to the PowerPoint right quick, look at how much that kingdom expanded. Israel is where? Pretty much right here, right? Northern, that's Tyre and Sidon's pretty much where Samaria would be at. Yeah. Jerusalem is down here. But look at how much land they were covering. Assyrian Empire, and it shows you the different years right there, from 1800 to 1600 BC, 1244 to 1208 BC, 699 to 627 BC, right? So our people got taken from here, and read 24 again.
Verse 24. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cutha, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and dwelt in the cities thereof.
So right here between Sidon and Tyre, that's where Israel, the land that Israel used to inhabit, the northern kingdom. So they took us from here and brought us to Nineveh, brought us to all these places out here, right? Babylon. And they got the Babylonians and all these other people that he just read about, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, Sepharvaim. He drove them into the location of the northern kingdom, which when you go into the New Testament, that's why a lot of our Christians, so-called Christians out there, have such an issue understanding, because we don't go into this history. You guys forget about the Old Testament like it's nothing. How is it not going to be of importance when it holds the history of your people? And even if you don't consider you being, yourself being an Israelite, it holds the history of the people of Christ, which is, who he came for. So he says right here, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So you got all our people exile, right, out of the northern kingdom into all these different locations, all the way out this way. And you got strangers living in the northern kingdom in Samaria now. Let's go to Matthew 10 and verse 5.
The book of Matthew chapter 10 and verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any of the city of Samaritans enter ye not.
Why was he saying that, Bakwash? No, but read that again,
Verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not.
So this is when Yahweh Shai came through. He got his apostles, right? And they're about to go put in work to go wake up, Israel, go, feed the sheep. But he's saying, he told them what?
Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any of the city of the Samaritans enter ye not.
Remember the Samaritans. That's Samaria. Who was in Samaria now? We're reading in the days of Rome. Right now, we just read the history of what happened in the Assyrian captivity, which was, like I said, 722 BC. So 722 years plus from when Yahweh Shai is saying this. Almost 800 years. He's telling Israel, the Judeans, not to do this. What would that be? And not Assyrians, but all these other nations that Jake read about in verse 24. You had Babylonians, you had people from Cuttah, Ava, Hamath, all these different locations. Pretty much all these strangers predominantly were the ones living in the land of Samaria. That's why he said, don't go. It's like us telling you, look, where you guys going to teach? East side, west side. Imagine, brothers, we're going to go to Palos Verdes today. What you doing that? What are you going to go find out there? Or Beverly Hills, or the Fairfax district. Yeah. Like, you going to go find some documentation, some history, or what? Because Israel ain't out there. Yeah. That's what Yahweh Shai was telling them, look, don't bother going out there. Because it ain't Israel. I mean, there was some Israelites still there, a couple, but the majority were not there. Just like nowadays, you still got some Jakes in Beverly Hills, Palos Verdes, and all that, but we on the other side, right?
To what
mainly, because it's showing you right here. There's also another precept. Let me get John 4:9, I believe it is. That was it with 5? Actually, read 6.
Yeah, verse 6. Verse 6, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, back then, you don't think they knew what territory that was? They knew, like, here you know exactly where you're going to find Jakes, where you're going to find Southern Kingdom, where you're going to find Northern Kingdom, where you're going to find both of them, right? Go ahead, get, what I tell you, John
Something.
4 and 9, I think I want. It's the same, it should be about covering the same thing.
Oh, yeah, the woman, Samaritan.
Yeah.
It starts from 5, but if you want.
All right.
All right, the book of John, chapter 4, and we're going to start from verse 5. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar.
See, so Yahweh Shai, right?
Yeah.
So Yahweh Shai is here. And be like, but he told them not to go up in there. Remember, what is it? It's Matthew. Before we go and continue with that, I think it's Matthew, is it 13? When they were trying to figure out where he was going to go.
Matthew 13 is a lot of parables. Great multitudes were gathered together unto him so that he went to a ship and sat. So he's teaching in the ship in Matthew 13.
No, hold on, let me get it right quick. Okay. You go ahead and read that, John. I'm trying to find this.
Let me start with John 4 and 5. Then he, referring to Yahweh Shai, cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. History. Now Jacob's well was there. Yahweh Shai, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour of the day. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus say unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria?
So see, she's kind of even tripping out. Because obviously it wasn't common for Jews to come in, homeborn Jews, tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, to come out and deal with Samaritans, right? So he's like, how is it that you, a Jew, are asking me, a Samaritan woman, for water? Go ahead.
For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said,
Remember, Hosea told that to Judah. He said, look, depart from Ephraim. Ephraim being another title given to the northern kingdom. He says, they have joined unto idols. Leave them alone before they corrupt you as well. So that's why the dealings were not common between the Jews, the circumcision, how Paul explains it, and the uncircumcised, right? Go ahead.
Jesus answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water.
Exactly. So obviously, the most Yahweh Shai right here is dealing with this female that is of the descendants, of our ancestors or whatnot. But that was it, just showing you how there was no dealing with the Samaritans back then. It wasn't common, right? And that's why a lot of people had issues with Paul, because what was Paul sent to? Or who was Paul sent to?
The unclean.
To the unclean, right?
Yep.
To the scattered. Yeah, I don't recall that, but remember is where they're asking, where's he going to go? Is he going to go amongst the Gentiles?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
So that's the scripture that I was talking about, or trying to refer to, and that's exactly where Yahweh Shai pretty much ended up going in those days, to go deal with the scattered of Israel. But I'll find it eventually. But let's go back to Kings.
Got you. First King or Second Kings.
You could go from 25.
2 Kings
17,
chapter 17 and
25.
verse 25. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew some of them. Wherefore they spake to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the city of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he has sent lions among them. And they, behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land.
So you see how the land was, even though all that wickedness was happening, Most High sent them lions, like, man, go tear these fools up. Show them, whose land this is. But, then they got this priest that came in and kind of, made peace for a minute, but it still shows you that these individuals, continue on, all right?
Verse 27.
See if they worship the Most High or not.
Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, carry thither one of the priests whom ye brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the God of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Howbeit every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Samaritans had made.
Exactly. Let's get Psalms 147, 19 and 20 to prove why these heathens can't and will never be able to follow and worship the laws of the Most High, just, how Israel's supposed to.
Psalms 147, verse 19. He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord.
Exactly. And the scripture I wanted was at John 7 and 35. We can go there right quick just to show you how Yahweh Shai was busting more missions than what we read about. I know brothers went out a while ago, and all throughout the places that brothers have visited, there's always stories, similar stories about Yahweh Shai appearing unto them, talking or revealing something unto them. You have the Aztecs, it's Quetzalcoatl is who they refer to as, Yahweh Shai or whatnot. And then in the South Pacific, I think it was Fiji, the same thing. It was a story said that, that this individual was walking on water and told them, to stop fighting amongst brethren or whatnot. But it's just, proving what this precept says right here. Go ahead and get 34.
John 7 and 34. Ye shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. Then said the Jews among themselves, Whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go into the dispersed among the dispersed, among the Gentiles?
So you see that? There were still some in Samaria. Same as, remember, this is 722 we're reading about. We're going to go into Esdras in a minute, but we all know what happened in Esdras. They took counsel amongst themselves, the 10 tribes that is, and not all of them, some of them, because everybody thinks that, oh, all the 10 tribes jumped on a ship and came to the Americas. That's stupid. The Bible don't say that. We don't say that. It shows you even there, books like, Assyrian history. It shows you that, they also migrated into Europe, migrated into, the location that they were at. They stayed, because it was a council that wanted to leave the wickedness that took ships, jumped on ships, and started migrating towards the west. That's 722 BC. We're reading right now about Yahweh Shai, like I said, almost 800 years later. So what do you think? He's just going to be focused in that little sector, that little section of Palestine? So he says, the apostles are right here trying to figure it out. Where's he going to go? Will he go into the dispersed? Go ahead.
The dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? What manner of saying is this that he said?
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. But, that's, like I said, not everything, all the acts of Yahweh Shai are documented, but it's showing you that he was obviously, moving. And then once he left individuals in charge of that. He left Paul in charge of the Gentiles, the scatter. That's what Paul, you look at Paul, what was he doing? He was traveling all over the place. He was going, you could look up in an atlas or even in your concordance in your Bible, all the routes, all the missions that Paul busted. It was crazy. Mad missions. And remember, back in the day, the fastest thing was the ship. And the ship wasn't a smooth ride. But that's what the brother was doing, trying to reach the scatter of Israel. Because even we could get 11 right quick. John 11 and 49. Because even this individual, the priest at that time, the high priest, knew that Yahweh Shai's mission was for this particular reason. Go ahead.
John 11 and 49. And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, Ye know nothing at all.
So he's talking to the other Pharisees. Go ahead.
Nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not.
So he's talking about Yahweh Shai. He's like, you foolish Pharisees, don't recall what we read about, what we're supposed to be about? It is expedient not to us only, but to the whole nation that this one individual dies, right? Go ahead.
And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahushua would die for that nation. And not for that nation only.
Oh, but for the whole world, right? John 3:16, for all my Christians, fake Christians that out there. It says, and not for that nation only, but what?
But that he should gather together in one.
Read that again, but what?
But that he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad.
You see that? That's what Yahweh Shai came for. That's why he left Peter and Paul. Peter for the circumcised, Paul for the uncircumcised. And of course, Paul wasn't the only one on that mission. He had different individuals under him putting in the same work. So it all connects. I know it's a little off, but just making sense. Because, what's the point of knowing about the Assyrian captivity to me is so we could understand what happened to the northern kingdom as well as the southern kingdom, where we ended up and where we at now. So let's go from there. Let's go to Esdras. I think, let me see, 2 Kings, was that it with that? Yeah, 2 Ezra 13.
2 Ezra 13. What do you got? I'm thinking I know what verse you want. If you want 2 Ezra 3.
Yeah, let me get it. 2
TBA.
Ezra 13, and you can start at 37.
Second Ezra 13 and verse 37. And this, my son, shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations, which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest. And they shall lay before them their evil thoughts, and the torments wherewith they shall begin to be tormented, which are like unto a flame, and he shall destroy them without labor by the law, which is like unto fire. And whereas thou saw that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes.
You see that? So he's breaking down that knowledge. He's connecting that puzzle right there. He's telling this individual, look, and these other individuals that you're going to see or you're going to hear about, this other multitude, those are the 10 tribes. Go ahead.
Which were carried away prisoners out of their own land.
Which we read about already in 2 Kings, right?
In the time of Hosea the king.
The same king that we read about, Hosea, the same thing.
Whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters. And so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves.
So here where we at, I slipped up, like I said, and I didn't send these maps to AV, but let me see some of the locations. You can find this anywhere. You can find it online, of course. Is the places, the locations of exile. I'm gonna read this right quick, and this is the IVP Concise Atlas of Bible History, page 86. The year 722 BC, the Israelites exile. The fall of Samaria. It says Israel's last king, Hosea, 731 to 722 BC, did not prove a reliable ally for the Assyrians. Seeking help from So, king of Egypt, he rebelled. Shalmaneser V, 727 to 722 BC, seized Hosea and laid siege to Samaria, which fell in 722 BC. After 3 years, the new Assyrian king, the usurper Sargon II, from 722 to 705 BC, also claimed the capture of the city in the first year of his reign. So you see that boasting is good that they were boasting, actually, because there's proof of what we read about outside of the Bible, which this Jake is going to go into in a bit. The Israelites deported. So this is talking about Sargon. Sargon has a little piece that, you know, he was out here boasting of what he had done. The Israelites deported. The Israelites were deported to regions under Assyrian rule, specifically to Hala, northeast of Nineveh. So when you read about Nineveh, that's an Assyrian a stronghold for the, you know, it's a city, an Assyrian city. Remember who was sent out there? Jonah. Right. Jonah to make sure, remember, and those are Jakes that were living there that were acting wicked. And Jonah was so, you know, he was like, well, what's the point of me going out there? I'm going to probably get killed. He eventually made it, and they, remember, fasted and came back and repented. So it says, specifically to Halal, northeast of Nineveh, Gozan on the Harbor River, and the towns of the Medes around modern Hamadan in Iran. So that's where we were captives at, in Iran, modern day Iran, where you see all the missiles blowing up out there. Sargon II records that 27,290 people were deported from Samaria. Exile was not a new punishment, but it was the Assyrians who used it most. Sargon II's own records list 38 deportations, and it estimated that the Assyrians deported some 4 million individuals. The writer of Kings blames the Israelites' exile on their idolatry, which we read about, you know, in 2 Kings 17, 7 through 8. Then Samaria repopulated. Having removed the Israelites to Assyria, the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, on the Orontes River, and Sepharvaim, and settled them in the towns of Samaria. Since Sargon II did not subdue Babylon and its near neighbor Cutha until 709 BC, this seems to have happened during the succeeding years rather than in the immediate aftermath. So it happened a little bit after the exile. The new arrival continue in their, Salakia. The new arrivals continue in their idolatry. When some were attacked, which is what we read about, and then it continues on and it says this right here. Thereafter, the people did worship the Lord, but they also served their own gods. Is that possible? No, not Yahweh, right? Their descendants emerged as a group that the Jews of Jerusalem were to regard with an undying animosity, the Samaritans. So you see, and this again, like it's an outside source. I know it's a biblical atlas, but it's showing you, from a historical perspective. Right. So this is the Assyrian king Sargon II, and like I said, it says Israel was taken out, Gozan, Nineveh, Halah, Ecbatana, and then all the other individuals were brought in. They were brought in from Cutha, Babylon, the farthest east locations, Sepharvaim, Hamath, and Damascus.
Yeah. It helps to have a map to see these cities.
Yeah, but you could just look up a Israelite exile map,
right,
and you'll be able to find it, and it shows you all the regions. That's why when you read Matthew, when you read John, it all makes sense. And when you read about there's no difference between a Jew and a Greek and a Grecian, that's not at this point, but that's in regards to, the Maccabee captivity, the captivity that you find in the book of Maccabees. That's why it's so necessary for my Israelites out there to really go into this history, so a lot of the New Testament, or mainly the Paul writings, could make sense. But besides this, I'm gonna shoot that so you could
yeah.
go into it.
Shoot.
This one, right?
Yeah, we'll start on that one.
Go to the PowerPoint art.
Hopefully I'll be able to read it from there. I should, if we could, dim the light, please, you guy. All right, so one of the first extra biblical sources that we have is one of the an artifact of the king Sargon. So this is called one of the Annals of Sargon. The second, I'm gonna just read the white. King Sargon II's prism. That's what it's called, a prism, not an obelisk. Prism commemorating his founding of his capital city, Darshukin or Khoresbad, used with the permission of. Okay, so that's just in the capital city. So. You know what? Just go to the second slide. So this is the actual artifact, and it's written in Assyrian Cuneiform, and this is what's actually written on there, talking about the our people, pretty much. The second slide after that. All right, so on that prism, this is what it says in the cuneiform. The Sargon Annals state, the city of Samaria, so we just talked about that for a good portion of the lesson. Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel. I besieged, so Sargon is referring to himself. I took 27,280 of its inhabitants. Israelites were the inhabitants. I carried away 50 chariots that were among them I collected. So the second paragraph just basically restates in 2 Kings 17, which we had been in, what the Bible says. So that's written. That's one of the pieces of archaeology that's written on this prism. So the Assyrian history themselves, just like the Bible Atlas, proves that this is a real captivity. This is real history, which we say against the people that say the Bible is just a book of of myth and morals, but it's more than that. It's a history book and a moral book and more prophecy. But yeah, that's the first article, and we got sources and everything that you guys can look up too. If you review this lesson.
Let's go back to 2nd Ezra right quick, and then we'll come back to some more of these sources that the Jake has. But go back to start at 40 again.
Second Ezra chapter 13 and verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Moshe the king, whom Shalmaneser the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
Exactly. So right here, again, we're in those particular cities that we named a little while ago. And then in this location, it says, verse 41. Read 41.
Verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
Exactly. So this is where, we talk about how they ended up in the Western Hemisphere, whether it's from the Caribbean, Brazil, South America, all the way to the Americas. Even in the Jewish encyclopedia, which is the word we're going to go into, it describes Arsareth being America, right? So it says a group of these individuals, of these Israelites, it took them over 200 years plus to realize, you know what? Let's try to get it together. So it says, and they took a counsel amongst themselves. Read.
And they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
Go ahead.
That they might there keep the statutes which they never kept in their own land.
Do you see that, though? Again, key word, that they might keep the statutes that they never kept in their own land, right? Go ahead.
And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and he held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth.
So when you look at where they're at, which is like modern-day Iraq, from there, you would go into the Euphrates. From the Euphrates, you would exit into the Persian Gulf. From the Persian Gulf into the Indian Ocean, you would travel south, right, into the Atlantic, basically, around Africa. Around, I forget what cape that's called, but it's like a little strait. And that's pretty much the currents, because, there's rivers in the ocean. So when you look at the rivers, that's the way the currents flow. They flow southwest around Africa and northwest into pretty much what you would have the northeast side of South America. I believe that's where Brazil is at. Yeah. Right?
Northeast? Yeah, South
Northeast.
America,
Yeah, all that whole region, pretty much the east side of the South American continent.
Right.
So that's, and then when you look at individuals like Magellan, it took him 3 years to circumnavigate the globe. So if you look at what it says right here, it says a year and a half. You break that in half. When you look at where they're coming from, they're pretty much coming from a central location of the world, and you calculate that to the Americas, to that eastern coast of South America, it's a year and a half. Like you look at the records of Magellan back in the day, that's pretty much how long it would take for an individual, for a sailboat to come from that part of the world into the Americas. So that's where we at this time, 722. A little bit past 722. These 10 tribers are taking counsel amongst themselves to come into this land which was never inhabited before, called Arsareth. And like I said, you go into it and you will find documentation proving to you, that Arsareth is the Americas. But going back into some more of the archaeology, or I guess proof, documentation that this took place. Want to see this?
Yes.
And then I'll go on onto some of this stuff in the book.
Got you.
And this is in Arsareth, right? Who's this guy?
This is Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce Indian tribes, native Indian tribes of America. And pretty much, I won't read the top, but pretty much on the left-hand side, the same writing as the prism from Sargon II is the same writing right here on this tablet that Chief Joseph had as an heirloom passed down from his forefathers living in the North America.
What kind of writing is that?
And it's cuneiform. And cuneiform is an Assyrian writing piece. So how he has that is just it's another link to the Assyrian captivity that the northern kingdom of Israel is in, and it's basically just a receipt. This is literally just a receipt for sheep that were going to be used to be sacrificed. So this was something that was taken obviously from back in the Eastern Hemisphere that was carried along to the Western Hemisphere, where the 10 tribes had been living for some time, over 1,500 years plus. And that's Chief Joseph right there, on the right-hand side. So that's another piece of archaeology proving that this captivity was real for the nation of Israel.
And also that they navigated and got to the Americas, because how would this individual, Chief Joseph, have cuneiform, pieces written in cuneiform, the Assyrian, language or writings out here in the Americas, But there's always going to be some, some people that don't believe or whatnot. But that's not only one piece. Right. Like I said, there's so many that you could find, and then also even on their end, this is proving, the individuals here being the Israelites. But I could go into some of this stuff right here. Let me go ahead and read these 2 pages. And I'm going to find something out here as well. You can just read the whole thing, yeah.
Gotcha. So this is from the IVP Concise Bible Atlas. Assyria, the threat from the north. Assyria's rise, some 900 kilometers to the northeast of Israel, lay Assyria, a mountainous land watered by the river Tigris. In the early 19th century BC, Assyria was expanding. King Ashurnazirpal II launched at least 14 major expeditions during his 25 years on the throne. In 853 BC, Ashurnazirpal's successor, Shalmaneser III, fought an alliance which included the Israelite king Ahab at Qarqar on the Orontes River in Assyria. Assyrian records state that Ahab put 2,000 chariots into the battle. In 841 BC, Jehu, or his ambassador, is shown giving tribute to Shalmaneser on the Black Obelisk.
Exactly. That's another piece that you could look into.
Right.
Is that obelisk, and then you also have something that the brother had mentioned to me earlier, was a little star. When you look up the Black Obelisk, you look at Jehu, or his representative, bowing down, and then you see in the back, you have the Assyrian, that little star, or those little, pieces that they will use, which is something that you also found out here, right?
Yeah, and I believe they still use that star on their flag today, as far as what I've briefly seen in Google searches. But yeah, it's the same star. Okay, so Assyria in decline. 31 years of Shalmaneser III's 35-year reign were devoted to war. After his death in 824 BC, weaker Assyrian monarchs lost much of Syria to the Armenian kingdom of Damascus, which in turn also reduced Jehu's territory. Jonah, the book of Jonah narrates how Jonah resisted God's call to go to Nineveh, which was one of the main cities of Assyria, and proclaiming the Lord's impending judgment. He attempted to flee by ship to Tarshish, perhaps the Guadalquivir Valley in southern Spain or Sardinia. Following a violent storm, Jonah was thrown overboard, swallowed, and disgorged by a great fish. Perhaps surprisingly, the people of Nineveh responded favorably to Jonah's message. The book closes with Jonah sulking, being more upset over the demise of a plant than pleased at the deliverance of 120,000 people. And in Jonah 3:6, the king is called king of Nineveh, not the usual king of Assyria. The decree recorded in Jonah 3:7 is that the king and his nobles, it may be that he was effectively king of Nineveh, but of little more besides, with large parts of his kingdom ruled by powerful provincial governors, whose power and influence he acknowledges in his decree. And this last subject, Tilgath-Pilsner III, Under Tilgath-Pilser III, which was reigning from 746 to 727 BC, Assyria became strong again. Menahem, which we read about, king of Israel from 755 to 741 BC, had to pay him, rather chose to pay him, a heavy tribute. By 734 BC, an anti-Assyrian coalition was in place. Rezin, king of Damascus, and Pekah, king of Israel, tried to force Ahaz, king of Judah, to join them. Instead, Ahaz paid Tilgath-Pilser to attack Damascus. Tilgath-Pilser duly obliged and captured Damascus in 732 BC. But then the Assyrian armies marched south to Israel, capturing the whole of Gilead and Galilee. Tilgath-Pilser claims to have deposed Pekah and made Hosea king. In 2 Kings 15 and 30, it is noted that Hosea assassinated Pekah, and it is possible that Tilgath-Pilser convened with Hosea in order to secure a more trustworthy ruler. Hosea was to be Israel's last king, the northern kingdom. Yeah. Subsequent Assyrian kings, Shalmaneser V and Sargon II, conquered Samaria and exiled the remaining Israelites to far-flung parts of the Assyrians' growing empire.
Cool. So I'm gonna read this. We're gonna end it with this right quick. This is Missing Links discovered by E. Raymond Cap, chapter 6, page 97. It's kind of repeating some of the stuff that we already went over, but I'm gonna try to just rush through it right quick. It says, Israelites identified in Assyrian tablets. And again, this is just to prove the Bible from an outside source that has nothing to do with the Bible. But it says, one of the earliest Assyrian references to Israel is found on the monolith of Shalmaneser III, excavated in 1861 at Kirk, ancient Tushka, on the Tigris, in the southwestern Turkey. It depicts the king standing under the symbols of the Assyrian gods, which he salutes. The front and back of the stele are covered with cuneiform writings, which includes events of his first 6 campaigns of conquest. So it's 6 campaigns that this stele is breaking down, right? 1, the stone monument, the Assyrian king, on the stone monument, the Assyrian king records his victory. In his 6th year, 853 BC, over a coalition of 12 kings at the Battle of Karkar, near Hamath on the Orontes River, which is what the brother already read. The defeat armies included 2,000 chariots and 10,000 foot soldiers from Ahab the Israelite. Ahab Math-ser Eliah is how he refers to him as, king of the northern Hebrew kingdom of Israel. This is the last record of the Assyrians referring to the Israelites by that name. So see, this is where some confusion comes. But it's showing you, this is the last time that they're actually going to refer to Israel as Israelites, right? Then it says, in spite of this victory, further uprisings against Shalmaneser's authority brought other punitive campaigns against various minor kings in his realm, including Jehu, the successor of Ahab. And subjugation of Jehu was later made complete in Shalmaneser's 8th year, 841 BC. The record of this event was found AD 1846 on a stele in Kirkirth by Sir Austin Henry Layard, the descendant of Huguenot refugee who had settled in England. Then it goes into the black stone known as the Jehu stele, or the black obelisk, depicts Shalmaneser's triumph over several kingdoms of Syria and the west. In the second row from the top is the figure of Jehu, dressed in the costume of the Western Semites, paying homage by bowing to the ground while his servants bring gifts. In the text, Jehu is called the son of Omri. The Assyrians in this period of time used the term House of Omri to cover both the northern kingdom of Israel, governed from Omri's capital, Samaria, and the family of Omri, in which they apparently included Jehu. Above the scene is written in Assyrian cuneiform script the tribute of Jehu, Ayah, son of Kumri, Omri, son of Kumri, Omri. All right, so when you find these terms or you're reading some history, those are your forefathers right there. That's the house of Omri. I received from him silver, gold, and a golden bowl, a golden vase with pointed bottom, golden trumpets, golden buckets, tin, a staff for a king, and parakti fruits. The Hebrew name Omri begins with the consonant Y, called by Ayin, which is pronounced with a guttural H and is represented in Assyrian transliterations as G or K. The Israelites would naturally pronounce Omri as Gomri, which became Kumri in Assyrian. Thus, the Assyrians, even before the Israelites were taken into captivity, called the Israelites Beth Kumri, meaning house of Omri. Similar pronunciations are found in the names Gomorrah and Gaza, both of which begin with the consonant Y. The Assyrian name Kumri, used to denote the Israelites, is also found in the annals records of King Tiglath-Pileser III, which goes back to the annals that he brought concerning his invasion of Israel when he removed the first Israelites to Assyria. The cities of Gilead and Abel-Meth-Makkah on the borders of the land of Kumri, imagine that, and the widespread land of Hazael to its whole extent, I brought within the territory of Assyria. So just giving you different names as far as what the Assyrians were referring to Israel as, right? Sargon II, 722 to 705 BC, also makes mention of the Kumri in his records of the capture of Samaria. He refers to himself as the conqueror of Beth Kumri, Omri. Apparently, this is the last mention of the Israelites by the name Kumri, right? And then it says, however, a study of the Assyrian cuneiform tablets, known as the Royal Correspondence of the Assyrian Empire, reveals the history of the Israelites in Assyrian captivity. These clay tablet letters were found by English archaeologist Austin Henry Layard, while attached to the British Embassy at Constantinople. And then it continues on, and whenever you continue researching, it goes from Beth Kumri to all kinds of other names like Visigoths, Goths, Mexicans, and so forth. So whenever you get a chance, if you're able to get a chance, get that book. There's a lot of Assyrian, because that's one thing you will find. There is a lot of Assyrian inscriptions proving that Israel was either taking other people into captivity, they won some battles against them, or everything else that we read about this evening. So with that, you have something else?
I mean, that pretty much is to be beating a dead horse at this point, you know, but yeah, that's about it.
That's
Israel
it,
was really
Israel.
taken in captivity by the Assyrians.
And
Believe
ended up
it.
out here as the
Believe
10 tribes, so-called Native Americans. But with that, we say shalom, and till the next time. All right, peace.